Hi, I'm Andrew Woodward, founder of The Investor's Way, and I'm about to be on the Online Prosperity Show, where I'm going to share with you how you can take action to grow your wealth and retire financially free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. And today we've got a guest who's not only shaking up the personal wealth market, but he's also on a mission to empower over 1 million people to take care of their financial futures. Now, Andrew, how are you doing, my man?
Prosper, I'm doing fantastic and really looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. Well, before we really get engaged in what we're about to say, would you just maybe give us a little bit of a disclaimer as to what we're going to be talking about so we can jump right back into this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's really important that everybody understands today that we're talking general financial information. I don't know your personal circumstances, so nothing that I'm going to share today is intended to be specific financial advice. And I think if you want more specific information, then you know where to get it, whether it's through an expert or a wealth coach like myself. But nothing I'm sharing today is specific financial advice to you. It's very general in nature and intended to inform and hope that you take it and do something with it.
Absolutely. Now that we've got the legalese out of the way, if you're watching this right now, you are about to learn how you can take control of your financial future. And what am I saying? Well, our guest today is Andrew Woodward, a man who's gone from witnessing his parents' financial struggles to actually becoming a millionaire himself at age 38, and now he's teaching others how you can do the same. And he has with him 3 proven pillars to his framework that he's going to be sharing with us here. And you might be wondering, why should you care to hear from Andrew? Well, Andrew is the mastermind behind the Investor's Way. And let me tell you, if you've ever felt overwhelmed by the thought of maybe looking at your finances or your bank balance, Andrew is here to show you that it's not as complicated as the financial advisors would want you to believe. So you want to stick around, because I think this episode is going to be packed with insights that will actually change your financial trajectory forever. Now, Andrew, I mean, obviously, you've already told us that not so many people are experienced in talking about financial setups for a lot of people. Tell us a little bit about how you got started on this journey and, what it is that you actually do for other people.
Yeah, no worries. And look, I'd recommend people grab the popcorn because this can be a long story. But when I was 14, I was playing squash in an adult competition. And I was fortunate to play with a team that was dominated by men working in the financial space. And they spent 6 months getting in my ear as a 14-year-old, teaching me, telling me, insisting on me that I had to learn how to invest so that I could get my money working for me. And I believe that little season of squash planted a seed in me to learn these things. And over time, as I got older, I knew numbers seemed. I see the world in numbers, and numbers just seemed to work for me. And I used my my ability with numbers to get through high school and then through university. And all the time I was looking and studying on ways to grow wealth and not have to exchange my time for money. And in my early 20s, I went through that period of time where money would come in and go out faster than I could, make it work for me. Growing a family from a young age, and I got a little bit lost. And then had that time where I came home, went to open the mail, and it was just full of bills that I couldn't afford to pay. And I knew I had to do something different. And it was that aha moment where I knew that I couldn't continue playing debt roulette the way that I was, and that I had to start getting serious about managing and growing my money. And it was from that moment onwards that I changed everything. and started, really starting to implement what I had been learning gradually, and I accelerated the learning phase so that I knew how to grow my money. And was a fairly rapid turnaround from a position of multiple credit card debts and a big mortgage to by the age of 38 becoming a millionaire, and then in my mid 40s starting a business to teach people what I had done at the bequest of a mentor who said he knew how passionate I was about this topic and the need for people to be financially literate, and he challenged me to teach people what I'd done for myself, and that is what I do now. And I encourage people to learn as much as they can about how to manage their money, because nobody cares more about your money than you do.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for taking us on that journey there. Now, let's just go back to the time you were 14, Andrew. I mean, obviously, you being around all these people and things of that nature. So you would maybe spend a couple of hours playing squash and then you're going back home. What was the situation back home? Did it reflect on what you were learning from these other gentlemen, or were you exposed to something else?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really, it's a great question, and it's a delicate answer to give, because I'm mindful that my parents did as best as they could with what they had. But my father was made redundant 3 times in his career. And the last time it happened, it ended his career because he was just at that age where starting again, wasn't going to be possible, or didn't end up being possible. And so there was many times during our childhood where money was tight. And my father was in between jobs because of a redundancy for over 18 months in a recession. And that put a lot of financial stress on the household. So I had that experience, and I say this with care and love, but I learnt all of the wrong things about money when it comes to money mindset. Money doesn't grow on trees. Rich people are greedy. We can't afford that. All those types of things that I've had to spend a lot of time and dollars overcoming. And I still, to this day, within arm's reach here, I carry these cards, I carry these cards with me, and they're all about my money mindset, because I know it's something I have to work on consistently to get the results I want, and something I had to overcome because my money programming as a kid was not, from a household perspective, was not what is ideal when it comes to abundance and growing wealth. And so I had, I guess, the lessons I was learning out of home, or being the messages I was receiving out of home, conflicting with what I was experiencing at home. And that's, I guess, why when I was in my mid-20s, I had some of those money mindset issues, which reflected in the ability for me to spend money quicker than I could earn it.
Absolutely. And I mean, and thank you so much for obviously opening up that side of your life, because yes, as you say, our parents would have done the best with what they knew how to, and sometimes it's not necessarily what would have led to a happier existence. And it's not necessarily anything to point a finger at. It's just what it was at that particular time. But at that age, at 14, you're somewhat of a sponge. You are grabbing all of that information from these other guys who did not resemble what information was like at home. You would have had maybe mates that were the same age as you. What sort of conversations would you be having with people around you that you somehow knew that were not obviously the adults or your parents or the people you played squash with?
Yeah, that's also a great insight to life in general. I grew up in an era where we were taught not to talk about money, politics, or religion. And so money conversations with friends, or particularly friends at that age, was not something that I was doing. And predominantly they were, I was being fed this information from these adults in my squash team. And keeping it to myself to an extent, because it wasn't a topic that I felt comfortable expressing with mates, because it was something I was taught not to talk about. And even to this day, like I'm 53 now, and I know that the money conversation that I have with my kids who are in their 20s is very, very different to the conversations that used to happen in my household. But in terms of my mates, I guess we always had aspirations for bigger and better than what our parents had done. I think that's a healthy thing. I think, I'd love to see my kids do better than what I do, and will have achieved. That's just something I think every parent wants to see happen. But I mean, we had aspirations, but I don't know that I necessarily had a lot of deep conversations about money with my mates. It's something that I kept to myself most of the time.
Absolutely. And obviously, you did grow up, and in your 20s, you did mention you were playing debt roulette. Just walk us through what those days were like.
Yeah, look, that's a scenario, and I reckon lots of people will resonate with this today because of what's going on in the current cost of living crisis that we're having all around the world. And that's where people have multiple credit cards, and the debt roulette is, you pay one, and then you start using the other one, and then you pay that one, and then the other one's due, and it just becomes one debt after the other just keeps accumulating to the point where, instead of focusing on how do I improve my financial scenario, all you're worried about is the next bill and how you might actually pay that bill with cash that you've already spent. And by that I mean, most people are spending beyond their means, and therefore credit cards the only solution, and you're just getting yourself deeper and deeper into a hole. And so for me, it was a case of that moment where I think I opened up 4 or 5 bills in one particular evening after coming home from work, and did the mental math and realized I wasn't going to be able to pay those bills unless something dramatically changed. And I had to go down a path of delay and get myself through, and do a few extra things to earn some extra cash to get through that period of time. But debt roulette is not something that's fun, and the mental stress that it causes is quite debilitating and very limiting on your ability to grow your wealth.
Absolutely. So around 14 or 15 years ago, congratulations, you earned millionaire status. I mean, obviously, coming from where you came from to having that realization that, wow, this is something that I'm now having to deal with. What was it like becoming a millionaire at 38?
I think it's an interesting thing, because it was always an aspiration, and I think these days $1 million is almost like, well, yeah, what's next type of thing. Like most people, $1 million is not enough, but at the time, it was kind of like ticking a box, and it was like a lot of goals that people have. When you achieve them, they're underwhelming. And I have to admit that when I did the calculations of my net wealth, which was something I became very regular with doing, it was like, yeah, we've ticked that box, but it wasn't enough at the time, and it certainly wasn't like reaching the peak. By the time we got there, it was always like, no, we've got to go long beyond this number in order to achieve what we're trying to achieve. And by that I mean I'm very much about generational wealth. And it's great that I can live off my investments and get to teach other people how to go about making that happen for themselves. But I'm now about creating generational wealth, so that what I pass on, or what my wife and I pass on to our kids, provides freedom for their kids. And I hope then that it becomes a chain where it keeps going down the line. But yeah, like that moment, it was like fleeting joy, but it was underwhelming, because by that stage we'd already moved on to another goal.
I can only imagine, but this is incredible. Hats off to you, man. I mean, not a lot of people will be able to say, you know what, that's it for me. And yeah, let's go on to the next thing. So that's something about it. But before we now jump into what it is that you do, One thing that you have obvious out in the way that you operate is you literally are talking yourself out of a job. I mean, you empower people to manage their wealth without even outsourcing or reaching out to experts like yourself. Why do you think it's crucial for people to actually have that control over their financial decisions rather than maybe relying on a traditional financial advisor to help them with this?
Look, this is a topic that is really, really close to my heart, and why I do what I do. And I think I mentioned it up front that nobody cares more about your money than you do. And therefore, why would you outsource the control of that money to somebody else who doesn't care about it like you do? And for some people, and I say this again with kindness in the heart, it's almost like if I outsource it to somebody else and it goes wrong, then it won't be my fault. And therefore, I can kind of handball responsibility to somebody else because people are fearful of making mistakes. But when I started this business, and I still get this to this day about why, what my program or the investment in my program is so low, is because people who outsource their money are paying an ongoing fee. And that has a dramatic impact on the future of your net worth. And when I started this business 9 years ago, I got referred to a book. There's two books that I think dramatically convinced me that this is the way to go in terms of my business and my purpose in life. And the first one's called "Where Are All the Customers' Yachts?" And it's a fable about two mates who went to school together. One of them became a financial advisor in New York, and the other one just worked somewhere else. And they caught up for lunch in New York, and they're walking towards the harbour, and they see all the yachts in the harbour. And the non-financial advisor says to his financial advisor mate, "Who owns all the yachts?" And his financial advisor goes, "Well, the financial advisors own all the yachts." And his naive mate says, "Well, where are all the customers' yachts?" And his financial advisor mate looks at him as if to say, "What are you talking about? The clients don't get to own the yachts. It's the advisor who gets to own the yachts." And that was just, using a fable, it was a very clear message of the completely upside down nature of that part of the market. Now, there's this place for financial advisors. I get it. There is a place for them in this world. But after reading that book, I knew teaching people how to do it themselves was important. And then Tony Robbins wrote Unshakable. And Unshakable, it's a 250-page personal development book where he spends the first 92 pages explaining why people should get a financial literacy education and the impact of advisor fees on their net worth. And it's a six-figure number over a 20-year period. So whilst their fees might look small initially, over the long term, they have a dramatic impact on your wealth. And that's why I step in and say, let's teach people, let's empower them, let's give them the tools, the resources, the processes to be able to do it themselves so that they don't give up that six-figure amount to somebody else.
Absolutely. I quite like this statement, where are all the customers' yachts? And I'm also looking at me within the marketing sort of industry, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is what we promised the clients, but where are all their yachts? So it's now a matter of the have yachts and the have nots, and it's something that really needs to be addressed. And I'm glad that you are putting it out there in the open, that you're saying, if I can teach people to fish, it makes a whole lot, a wealthier and happier sort of community than me saying, "Hey, you hand me all your money so I can put it in my investments and then just give you whatever dribs that I'm going to be charging you every single month for you to actually get access to." So it is a mindset, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It is
Yes,
just
absolutely.
because the way that the financial planners or that industry have made it look like is, you are not good enough to look after your money, let us do it for you. So it's, like you say, a top down phenomenon. So this brings me down to the mindset now when it comes to actually running your own sort of finances? Because you did mention that mindset is a significant component to your teaching, and you showed us your money mindsets and the flashcards that you have. Can you maybe walk us through, first of all, how mindset affects financial success, and then maybe perhaps share an example in your own life where mindset shift made a really big difference to how you now
Absolutely.
money?
Yeah. This is the type of stuff that I get pretty excited about, and I believe 95% of success with money is what's going on between your ears, and we've touched on it already today about your upbringing and so forth, how that builds foundational beliefs and money mindset. And when I was writing a chapter for a book a couple of years ago, I discovered that we have formed money habits by the age of 7. So, anybody who thinks it's too young to teach their kids about money, we're forming habits from as young as 2, and by 7 they are developed habits. But that's an aside. I've taken a bit of a tangent, but in terms of money mindset, my favorite example is all of the cliches that you will have heard as a kid, and you may not have heard them in your household. I did in mine, but things like rich people are evil, money doesn't grow on trees, all those types of cliches. We've all heard them. And my favorite one is rich people is evil from the extent of explaining, or my answer to your question. And that's, if you think rich people are evil, or you believe rich people are evil, why would you want to be rich? Because that is then going to indicate that you're evil, and nobody wants to be evil. So you automatically, if you have any level of belief in that saying, are going to avoid being rich. You will sabotage your results because you don't want to be viewed as being evil. And no matter how hard you work on growing your wealth, if you have that innate belief that you will be evil if you're rich, and I hate the word rich because of that saying, but if you believe it, then you will do everything to sabotage your results. And I'm sure there's people listening to this right now who can remember times where things looked like they were going really well and suddenly they went pear-shaped, and it will be because of a belief that they had around money. And so that's one thing that I worked really hard to change. But the other one is, and this is probably my favorite one, and that's where we're brought up to believe that you need to work hard to make good money. And the harder you work, the more you'll have. When the reality is it's the complete opposite. The less I work, the more I make. And when you let go of the chase for money, money finds a way to come and get you. And if you take away the blocks you put around money and the difficulty you put around it, money will flow a whole lot more easily to you. So on those cards that I showed you before, one of the things I write on there and reference all the time is money flows easily to me. And the more you believe that money will flow easily to you, the more it will. And it's an upside down belief on what we've been taught, that you have to work hard for money, when in reality, the less you work, or the more effective you work, the more money you will have.
Absolutely. I mean, just listening to your start of the story, the people that were making the most money and talking about it freely had enough time to go and play squash and actually enjoy themselves. Whereas most of the people that are hardworking, they're laboring every single hour that they possibly can, don't even have time to even eat or eat healthy themselves. So it's one of those things. Now, your story sort of resembles that of Kiyosaki, and I'm just going to say this with love and respect, where you had exposure to somewhat of a reach storyline, and then also to a poverty sort of storyline and mindset and things of that nature. Now you are going ahead and teaching others as well, so that they too can be able to fish. Now, how important is mentorship when it comes to obviously financial literacy and really getting to understand all these things, in your opinion?
Oh, look, I think mentorship is enormous in everybody's success. And I always, I'm a bit of a sports fan, and I always make the analogy to elite sports people. There's not an elite sports person who has achieved anything worth achieving that doesn't have a team around them. And it's no different when it comes to money. I don't do this on my own. I've never done this on my own. I've always had people that I look up to, that I look toward for guidance or support or knowledge or whatever it may be. And I think wealth, if people treated it more like a sport, a sporting activity, and said, okay, let's get the right people around me to help me get where I want to be, the more success they would have. And that's simple things, from a wealth perspective. It's like, a good accountant, a mortgage broker, a wealth coach. Having these people in your corner is going to enable you to get there, rather than you sitting at home, beating yourself up or getting overwhelmed by all the information that's out there, and struggling. And a lot of people say to me, why would I pay you to teach me this stuff when I can learn it on the internet? And I'm a big proponent on getting information where you can that's helpful for free. But I also like to share the example of, you can learn to swim by watching YouTube videos, but until you dive in the water, you cannot swim. And it's no different with any pursuit in life. You've got to implement, and you can watch all the YouTube videos you want, but unless you're implementing, you're not going to get the results. And quite often, one of the things that I hear from my clients is that accountability is a big part of what they got from working with me, and that's having someone there making sure they're implementing what they're learning.
Absolutely. And I quite like that. I mean, for those that would have seen in the last couple of days, that very statement came to life, where no matter you've got a PhD in whatever sports scenario that you're in, when it comes to the practical aspect of actually showcasing that talent, yes, you really need to make sure that you've got the actual practical approach to utilizing that skill set. Now, speaking of learning and things like that, financial education is not something that's taught at school, and half of the people that are in front of our kids every single day are also playing debt roulette just because they can. They have a steady job and they're being bombarded with all the afterpays and the competition to keep up with all the other teacher Joneses out there. But you've continuously educated yourself, and you did mention, when Tony Robbins released Unshakable, it should be one of the books that I also have in my shelf here. That was in 2016, right? I mean, you'd already become a millionaire. Why were you even bothering?
Look, it's I read those types of books all the time, because, like I said, if you're not learning, you're going backwards. And look, that book in particular I read because of I had heard from somebody else about those first 92 pages, and I wanted to see what he was saying, because I knew it was a message that I was trying to share. And I thought, if I could learn from a guy who's a master communicator what the message was, I could refine my message as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, so many people never go past, that sort of learning that you said at 7. They automatically stop learning, or have already set their mind with regards to their money mindset and things like that. And by the time they grow up, it's only just perpetuated based on what they had seen around them, whether it's good or it's bad, or there has been some sort of an influence for them to actually learn more, that things that will help them with their money mindset and things like that. But I think since 2014, obviously you've worked with hundreds of people, that are on their path to understand what their financial future should look like. Maybe you could share a success story. I know you succeeded, became a millionaire, and from the way you are talking, you obviously are going to do more and be more. But does this stuff work on other humans? Could you maybe could you share a success story that actually stands out
Yeah.
to you, perhaps somebody who really embraced your teachings and saw incredible results?
Yeah, look, I've got a couple of favorites that I like to talk about when answering this question. The first one is not my normal client. I'll say that right up front. But this was a young girl who was 16, and she shared with her parents her financial goals in life, things she wanted to achieve by the time she was 18, 21, 23, and was very clear on what she wanted to achieve. And I knew her parents at the time that she had shared these messages. So they invested in my program and said, could you teach our daughter how to achieve those goals? Now she's 18 and she has a 5-figure stock portfolio that she's built from working in a cafe on weekends. So a lot of people often say to me, well, how much money do I need to start? My answer is normally, well, if a 16-year-old can start, anybody can. Doesn't matter how much you've got, you've just got to get started. And she might not be able to invest every month, which is what I teach people to do, but she invests when she can. And as a result, she's got a 5-figure stock portfolio and she's well on her way with her habits and her skill sets to achieving those things that she wanted to achieve. So that's the first one. And like I said, it's not normal because I don't have 16-year-old clients on a regular basis. But if we talk more about a typical client who will come to me with, the majority of people will come with maybe their principal place of residence, a mortgage against that principal place of residence, and an understanding that they should be able to get more out of their money, but they just don't know how. We work with those people to identify what should be going into investing each month and how they can utilize the equity that they've got in their home to grow their assets. And from that, we've seen multiple times where people have added properties, stock portfolios, defensive assets like gold, silver, and bonds, and those types of things to their portfolio, so that by the time they're finished, they're on their path to being in a much better position than they would have been if they just kept doing nothing. And that's a very classic, typical example. And like I've got the 16-year-old example all the way through to a guy who came to me with $17 million worth of assets, and he didn't quite know how he got them and how to manage what he had, and just wasn't sure he was getting the most out of them. And we helped him turn that around as well. So we work with everything in between, from virtually nothing to large sums of money, and just helping people get a clear path from where they are to where they want to be in retirement. And not everyone's going to be able to get their ideal scenario, but at least get as close as possible to a much better position than they would have if they'd have done nothing.
Absolutely. And kudos to you for obviously having such a wide breadth of examples, because, anyone who's watching this can find themselves in any of those sort of examples. Now, with the 16-year-old, I mean, I'm just looking at that sort of age and I'm thinking at 16, I don't think I was even able to write my own name. But obviously with the technology there is these days, you could actually get that started without even having to leave your home to go and wait in line at a bank or things of that nature, or with a broker to get those transactions to start happening. Now, obviously that was ages ago, before the internet was prevalent. Now I have a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old, as we record this, 5-year-old who actually brings my phone to my face while I'm sleeping and opens it up and then goes to play. So I can think, if she can master that aspect, I think she'll be able to get started on finances. So thank you so much for just bringing that to the table. But you've sort of stopped working with people with online courses, and I think you just transitioned to now one-on-one coaching, which I think obviously then limits access to the stuff that you've got going there. What prompted this change, and maybe how has it sort of affected the impact that you're able to have on your clients?
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting one, and it's an unfortunately sad reflection on society as to why I did what I did. So I initially went down the path of writing some courses and wanting to sell courses to as many people as I possibly could. And so I joined a mastermind group based out of the US who were one of the best in the world at helping people grow online businesses and have the impact in life they wanted to have. So you talked about my ambition to impact 1 million lives. I thought if I could sell my courses to 1 million people, then I would get that impact. And the unfortunate part and the sad societal reflection here is that I also discovered through that same mastermind group that 75% of people who buy an online course don't even open it, let alone finish it or get any results from it. And from the outset, this was not about me making lots of money. I'd already done that. This was about having an impact. And I figured if I just keep selling these courses and people just don't even open them, what's the point of doing it? And so with the guidance of a mentor and a coach, I went down the path of one-on-one coaching. So it meant I would work with a lot less people necessarily, or be directly impacting a lot less people. But it meant that the people I did work with got an outcome. And that was what was far more important to me than being able to say I'd sold 1 million courses. So now with the TV show and my content each week and all that, I'm hopeful that people see something like this podcast and do something with it, whether it's with me or not, but at least do something to change their financial outcomes, and that will make me happy. But in the meantime, my ambition is to work with people one-on-one who are ready to take action to grow their wealth and help them get the outcomes they want. And look, I do this to keep me occupied during the month, because one of the things I teach is I want investing to be a 1 hour a month activity. And so if that's all I did every month, I would drive myself and my wife completely batty, and everyone would be upset about that scenario. So I get to do this for fun. And it also means I get to choose who I work with. And, in that process of choosing who I work with, I get to work with some pretty cool people. And we have a lot of fun in the process.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I can only imagine, because you just keep refreshing the feed and looking at what the ASX is doing. 0.20, 0.26. And
Well, that's an interesting thing, because I teach people not to look at the stock market even after they've invested in it. It's just once a month, update your numbers and move on to the next month, because it's about long-term gain, not looking at the market every 5 minutes and having to worry about what to do.
I like that, because it's not timing the market, but it's time in the market that actually matters when it comes to all of this. But you haven't completely shut doors. You offer a free smart investor call. Is that to your potential clients? What can somebody sort of expect from this call, and how do you maybe determine whether they're a good fit for your coaching program or not?
Yeah, so with the Smart Investor call, it's about a 20-minute call where what we're trying to do is understand at a very high level what your current financial circumstances are, but also understand what challenges you've faced when it comes to growing your wealth, and also what your motivations are, so that we can then work out very quickly whether or not you're the type of person that is likely to implement what we've got to share, and that we can actually be of some help to you. So we turn people away if we don't think we can help them, and that's at both ends of the scale. So if somebody's got their money completely under control, and they just come into our world because they like some of the things they've seen, and we don't think we can add any value to them, then we'll tell them that. The same with if somebody comes into our world who just doesn't have the capacity to do anything, and it's unfortunate, but there are people out there whose money circumstances are so strapped that an investment in themselves in the short term is just not appropriate. They've got to buckle down and get control of some other things. So we'll give them some resources to help with that. But putting them through a program where I'm trying to get them to invest when they're more worried about how they're going to pay next week's bill doesn't make a lot of sense either. So we just identify that. And then the big one is the motivations. And quite often we've got some questions we ask that will identify the motivations. And if we don't feel we're in alignment with that motivation, then we'll not necessarily work with those people either. We want people that are keen and will implement what we teach them, and they're doing it for the right reasons.
Absolutely. And what would be the best place where people can maybe go and figure out if they can qualify?
So the best place is my website, theinvestorsway.com.au. It's a brand new launched website just in the last week, and you can get access to a free resource on there as well, which is my favorite resource, which is called my Wealth Tracker spreadsheet. So you can go on there and get that spreadsheet. And if you want a smart investor call, there's also a place on the site where you can book that call. And there's a whole host of information on there about what we do. And you can assess for yourself whether or not you think we're the right people for you just with that information. But yeah, feel free to book a call with us if you're keen. We'd love to have a conversation and find out whether or not we can help you.
Absolutely. Now, Andrew, I mean, obviously, I know at 38 you became a millionaire, but I've got a question. How big is your security budget? Because with the kind of work that you're doing and all these financial institutions that are just going out and getting whatever money they can from people who shouldn't be, doing business with them in the first place, there must be a bounty on your head there.
Well, if people saw the size of my son, they'd realise I'm pretty well protected. But
Absolutely.
and he works with me in the business, which is just amazing. But yeah, look, Australia's a big place. The world's a big place. There's room for everybody. I'm not looking to work and take work away from other people. There's a space for all of us, and I get to choose. Like I said, I get to choose who I work with, and so I generally pick people that are smaller than my son, so I know he can take care of them if I have to.
Fantastic. So do you still play squash?
No, I haven't. I've only played. So at the age of 21, I won an Australian title, and then I didn't play again for about 10 years after that. And I've probably played 2 or 3 times since then. I'm a cyclist these days. It's a lot easier on the body.
Absolutely. So in essence, I mean, I visually believe in life, we're here to live, to learn, and to contribute. So in order for you to live the best life that you want, you need to learn how to do that. And you've showed us that you had mentors, you read books, and now you are sending the elevator down in your form of contribution, helping others be, do, and have a happier existence. And especially when it comes to managing and, being correct around their money. So let's just say one of these days you rock up at a squash, what do you call them, auditoriums or squash room, because it's always in class, isn't it? And and you come across a 14-year-old who's also just really trying to start playing and things of that nature. What sort of advice would you give to that young person, knowing what you now know about life and finances?
Yeah, look, it all starts, and the analogy I use is like building a house. So the foundations of a house, if they're not sturdy, eventually the house will fall over. So when it comes to wealth, the foundations of your house is money management, and the house itself is your investing. And so you've got to get the foundations right, which is money management. And the good news is I don't believe in budgets. They're like diets. They're great on paper, but useless when you need them the most. So create a system that's automated where your money goes where it needs to be when it needs to be there. So segment your money so that you've got your everyday money that you can live the life that you want to at the time. You've got money going somewhere else to pay for your bills. You've got money going to another place to take care of future expenses. And then you've got another amount of money that is going towards your future self, and that's your investing dollars. And that's where budgets tend to fall over. Is that most people say, I'm going to save $1,000 this month, and they prepare a budget says every month I'm going to save $1,000, but they get to the end of the month and the $1,000 is not there. So, for that 14-year-old, obviously $1,000 is probably the wrong example. It might be $10 or $20, but the idea is make sure you segment your money so that you're putting some away for your future self when you won't be working or you don't want to work for a living, and you can live off your investments that you've made over a long period of time.
Absolutely. Well, those are some really good daily habits there, or small habits that somebody can actually start incorporating, which will leave them in a position where they are absolutely smiling. You see, the thing, I was actually just talking to my wife just a couple of days ago when we were planning a holiday, which is going to be the first holiday we're taking ever since the world shut down. And I was just mentioning to her, can you believe it's actually been 5 years? And
Yeah.
I actually can still think immediately, because I'm in Melbourne, when they give us the stay-at-home orders. Well, not
Yeah.
that it mattered for me, I'm already at home, but I felt the crunch, because then the kids didn't go to school. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So time does travel really fast, and most of the people who would have maybe invested in that time, compounding is now starting to actually start taking effect. So it
That's
is,
right.
yeah, it is something that is imperative to just start where you are with what you have, and because
Yeah.
where you are is plenty. So I can't thank
And it's
you.
never too late. It's never too late to start.
Absolutely. I can't thank you for the time that we spent on the call today. But for those that are now excited about joining, the journey, or maybe wanting to take control of their financial future, what can they expect from Andrew? What's next? What can we anticipate?
In terms of my journey,
Yes, your journey. What have you got in
look,
store for us?
yeah, look, I just want to keep helping as many people as I can one-on-one, and expanding the TV show into a book and a podcast myself, so that we can reach more people, and therefore more people can take action to get the results that they want in life with their money. And if, like I said, if people want to have a conversation, it all starts with a conversation to take some action and get proactive in learning how you can grow your wealth using traditional assets like property, stocks, and gold, silver, bonds. I don't teach crypto. I don't. I'm not comfortable with the risk profile of it yet, so I don't dabble with it at all. But it's all about just investment grade assets, accumulating them over the long term, and you'll get the results you're looking for. And so the more people that can hear that message and do something with it, whether it's with me or somebody else, the better.
Absolutely. Now, Andrew, do you understand you have committed the ultimate sin there?
I don't, but I'm sure you're about to tell me what it is.
Absolutely. Well, you do not mention on the Online Prosperity Show that you are going to bring out a book and not pledge to come and launch it on the show.
Right, right. Well, it's hopefully something that's coming out next year, and so I'll happily come back and share that journey with you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now you've been acquitted. But thank you so much, Andrew, for the time that you spent with us. You are like that, for lack of a better word, that uncle or that older person that you met for a lot of people now who don't have that point of reference within their household. And representation matters. You know what I mean? When you can see it and you can model your behavior and who you want to become, it makes it easier for the young ones who don't quite have maybe a role model or somebody that they can look up to, because most of the people, it's not, they don't fail because they don't aim high. It's just that they aim so low and they hit, and it's not even scraping the surface of what is actually possible. So I think you are literally reaching those millions, even though you're not doing it in the copious amounts of courses that would just end up gathering digital dust. So on behalf of everyone that you're going to be helping, to really, really take control of their financial future. Thank you, my man.
No, thanks for those kind words, and thank you so much for letting me share my journey and my story, and sharing it with your audience. I hope there's people listening to this who got something out of it, and maybe we triggered them into some form of action.
Absolutely. Well, for me, what I gathered from all of this is, when life is happening or anything is happening in your life, you literally need to be paying attention, because one day you have a good story to tell on the Online Prosperity Show.
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic.
Well done.
Absolutely. Now, I mean, obviously, it's clear that your approach to wealth building is not just effective, but it's also empowering to anyone who actually wants to take control of their financial future. And the fact that you are allowing people and giving them permission to actually look at their numbers and take control, which is what other people are saying, no, don't you look at that, it's too hard for you, bring it to us so that we can look at it while I'm vacationing on my yacht, that your
That's
subscription is helping
your
me.
funding.
Now, for our viewers, if the prospect of you being a customer that owns a yacht inspired you today, why don't you just check out what Andrew has in store for you, and see what his work can do. And if it is the right fit for you, I recommend that you don't hesitate, reach out, or maybe listen to an episode or two of the Investor's Way, and take advantage of this free Smart Investor Call. And as always, if you found this episode valuable, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, or I encourage you to share this with somebody who's probably looking for more ways to actually start taking control of their future. That way, you too would have done your part in making this world a better place. And if this person can maybe bask in the wisdom that Andrew has to share, then I think we definitely would have helped them be to and have a happier existence. Until next time, stay prosperous and keep growing. Bye for now.